9:45 a.m. We are at 100 Church Street in New York City on the second floor. I would like to welcome you to a meeting of the New York City Business Integrity Commission. I am Noah Janelle, Deputy Commissioner of Legal Affairs and General Counsel for the Commission. I'm joined by the following commissioners: Daniel Brownell, Commissioner and Chair of the Business Integrity Commission; Department of Sanitation Commissioner Catherine Garcia; Deputy General Counsel for the Department of Investigation Chantal Senatus, representing DOI Commissioner Mark Peters; Assistant Commissioner Sandra Abeles of the Department of Consumer Affairs, representing Commissioner Lorelei Salas; Deputy Commissioner for Legal and Regulatory Affairs Andrew Schwartz of the Department of Small Business Services, representing Commissioner Greg Bishop; and New York City Police Department Inspector John Densopoulos, representing Police Commissioner William Pratt. There are a number of items on our agenda today which can be separated roughly into two categories: rules and applications. We have 3 rules to consider, along with an added agenda item, which I'll get to in a few minutes. We will then turn to the applications, of which there are 7 to consider. At the outset, I note that all of the rules that will be considered were posted and publicly available on the BIC website beginning on June 14, 2016, and continuing through today. In addition, in accordance with applicable procedural law, copies of the rules were emailed to each of the commissioners on June 13, 2016. The first rule to consider is a proposed rule that would delegate to the Commissioner and Chair of the Business Integrity Commission the function of beginning the rulemaking process, including those procedures applicable under the City Administrative Procedure Act, also known as CAPA. Under this proposed rule, the Commission may draft or direct others to draft proposed rules that the Commissioner deems necessary to carry out the policies and objectives of BIC, publish the proposed rules, and have a public hearing on them. No rule may be promulgated except by a majority vote of the members of the Commission. Do any of the Commissioners have any questions or comments regarding this proposal? Is there a motion to bring the proposed rule up for a vote? Is there a second? At this time, we're going to vote yes or no on this proposed rule. A vote of yes is an indication that you approve of the rule moving forward through the CAPA process, whereby it will be published and a public hearing on the rule will be held. A vote of no is an indication that you do not approve of the rule. The rule must pass by a majority vote. I ask that we go through the vote in order of seating from my left to right. How do the Commission members vote?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Let the record reflect that the vote is unanimous in favor of the rule. The next rule to consider is a final rule that would amend the rate cap under New York City Rules and Regulations, Section 5-02A. BIC is required by its rules to review the rate cap every 2 years. The rate cap was last adjusted in 2013. The rule currently under consideration would raise the rate cap by 3.3% to $18.87 per cubic yard, or $12.38 per 100 pounds. Do any of the Commissioners have any questions or comments regarding this rule? Seeing none. Is there a motion to bring this proposed rule up for a vote? Yes. Second?
Second.
At this time, we're going to vote yes or no on this rule. A vote of yes is an indication that you approve of the publication of the final rule. The rule would go into effect 30 days after publication. A vote of no is an indication that you do not approve of the rule. Let's go through from left to right again. How do the Commission members vote?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes. Let the record reflect that the vote is unanimous in favor of the rule. The next and last rule amendment to consider relates to commercial recycling and organics collection. The Department of Sanitation recently amended its rules in several respects regarding commercial recycling and organics collection. Those new rules go into effect later this summer. As you know, BIC's rules overlap considerably with the Department of Sanitation's rules. The rules currently under consideration were drafted to ensure that BIC's rules remain in sync with the Department of Sanitation's rules on these matters. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments regarding these amendments? Seeing none, is there a motion to bring these proposed amendments up for a vote? Is there a second? At this time, we're going to vote yes or no on these amendments. We'll go from my right down the line. How do the commissioners vote?
Yes.
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 Let the record reflect that the vote is unanimous in favor of the rule. We have an added item to the agenda today. In addition to the new rules and amendments to the rules that the Commission just considered, we have a preliminary item related to legislation. In November of 2015, the Business Integrity Commission, along with its law enforcement partners, the New York City Police Department, the Department of Investigation, and the Manhattan DA's office, concluded a 2-year-long investigation into systemic fraud in the heating oil delivery industry. 9 companies and 44 individuals were indicted for participating in a scheme to steal heating oil from customers by charging for oil that was never delivered. The scheme is called shorting because the defendants delivered some oil but less than what they were charging the customer for. Thus, the delivery was, quote, short in that it was not complete. It is estimated that the aggregated theft in the heating oil industry amounted to at least $18 million annually, with an estimated $4 million stolen annually from the city. The city paid at least $117 million for fuel deliveries to city buildings in fiscal year 2014 alone. This fraud has been going on for a very long time. There have been criminal cases brought in the past, particularly in the 1990s and early 2000s, both state and federal cases. Yet, as evidenced by the indictments last November, the fraud continues. Therefore, on the table now for the Commission's consideration is a proposal for the Commission staff to pursue a legislative solution to this fraud, much like the legislative solution that wrenched control of the commercial garbage hauling industry from the hands of traditional organized crime. The proposal is for the staff to draft legislation and negotiate it through the proper channels with the City Council. Any final draft of legislation would then be brought before the Commission for a vote. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments regarding this proposal? Seeing none, is there a motion to bring this proposal up for a vote? Is there a second? At this time, we're going to vote yes or no on this proposal. A vote of yes authorizes the staff to draft and negotiate legislation with the City Council regarding the regulation of the heating oil delivery industry. How do the Commission members vote?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Let the record reflect that the vote is unanimous in favor of the rule. The next and last item on our agenda is the consideration of 7 different applications, all of which the Commission staff has recommended to the Commission be denied. Each applicant was served with a notice of grounds to recommend the denial of its application. Each applicant was advised that it had 10 business days to submit a sworn written response to the Commission. Last week, all of the Commission members were provided with the recommended denial decisions regarding these applications, as well as any responses submitted by the applicants. There have been no material changes made to any of the recommended denial decisions since then. I will now review with the Commission members the grounds cited for each recommended denial. As we go through each application, the Commission members will vote as to whether or not to adopt the staff's recommendation to deny the application. A vote of yes is a vote to adopt the staff's recommendation, and a vote of no is to not adopt the recommendation. The first application is to be considered as the license application of Cyclone Recycling, Inc. to operate as a trade waste business. The staff attorney in charge of this application is David Mandel. The Commission staff recommends denial of this application based on the following ground as fully set forth in the staff's recommendation. That the Commission denied the renewal application of Cyclone's predecessor company, Oil Gorillas, Inc., finding that Oil Gorillas lacked good character, honesty, and integrity. Based on the facts of this case, the Commission should also find that Cyclone lacks good character, honesty, and integrity, as recommended by the staff. Do any of the Commissioners have any questions or comments regarding this application? Seeing none, is there a motion from the Commissioners to adopt the staff's recommendation? Is there a second? How did the commission members vote? Yes or no to adopt?
Yes.
Yes. Let the record reflect that the vote is unanimous. The next application to be considered is the registration application of FitzCon Construction / Ren Corp. to operate as a trade waste business. The staff attorney in charge of this application is Jared Rosen. The commission staff recommends denial of this application based on the following 3 independently sufficient grounds as fully set forth in the staff's recommendation. 1, the applicant failed to provide truthful and non-misleading information in connection with the application. 2, an individual named Ronan Fitzpatrick is an undisclosed principal of the applicant. And 3, the applicant knowingly failed to provide information required by the commission. Are there any questions or comments from the commissioners regarding this application? Seeing none, is there a motion from the commissioners to adopt the staff's recommendation? Is there a second? How do the commission members vote?
Yes.
Yes. Let the record reflect that the vote is unanimous. The next application to be considered is the registration renewal application of Moises Landscaping to operate as a trade waste business. The staff attorney in charge of this application is David Mandel. The commission staff recommends denial of this application based on the following 2 independently sufficient grounds as fully set forth in the staff's recommendation. 1, the applicant lacks good character, honesty, and integrity because it failed to pay taxes and other government obligations for which judgments have been entered. And 2, the applicant knowingly failed to provide information and documentation required by the commission. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments regarding this application? Seeing none, is there a motion from the commissioners to adopt the staff's recommendation? Is there a second? How do the commission members vote? Let the record reflect that the vote is unanimous. The next application to be considered is the registration application of RJB Contracting Corp. To operate as a trade waste business. The staff attorney in charge of this application is Pamela Peralta. The commission staff recommends denial of this application based on the following 3 independently sufficient grounds as fully set forth in the staff's recommendation. 1, the applicant knowingly provided false and misleading information to the commission in connection with the application. 2, the applicant's principal provided false and misleading information during his sworn testimony before the commission. And 3, the applicant and an undisclosed principal failed to pay taxes and other obligations for which judgments have been entered. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments regarding this application? Seeing none, is there a motion from the commissioners to adopt the staff's recommendation? Is there a second? How do the members vote?
Yes.
Let the record reflect that the vote is unanimous. The next application to be considered is the application of Russell J. Confucione for a photo identification card to work in the Brooklyn Meat Market. The staff attorney in charge of this application is David Mandel. The commission staff recommends denial of this application based on the following ground as fully set forth in the staff's recommendation. The applicant was convicted of a crime that bears a relationship to the fitness of such person to work in a public wholesale market. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments regarding this application? Seeing none, is there a motion from the commissioners to adopt the staff's recommendation? Second. How did the members vote?
Yes.
Let the record reflect that the vote is unanimous. The next application to be considered is the license renewal application of Salivating Express, Inc. to operate as a trade waste business. The staff attorney in charge of this application is David Mandel. The commission staff recommends denial of this application based on the following 4 independently sufficient grounds as fully set forth in the staff's recommendation. 1, the applicant has engaged in significant amounts of recyclable cardboard theft. 2, the applicant has been found in persistent violation of city, state, or federal laws, rules, or regulations regarding the handling of trade waste and has admitted liability for persistently violating commission rules. 3, the applicant failed to pay taxes, fines, penalties, or fees that are related to the applicant's business and for which judgment has been entered in favor of the Workers' Compensation Board of New York. And 4, the applicant knowingly failed to provide information and documentation required by the commission. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments that they would like to make regarding this application? Seeing none, is there a motion from the commissioners to adopt the staff's recommendation? Is there a second? How do the commission members vote?
Yes.
Let the record reflect that the vote is unanimous. The next application to be considered is the registration application of Verrazano Tree Service, Inc. to operate as a trade waste business. The staff attorney in charge of this application is former Executive Agency Counsel Melissa Isham. The commission staff recommends denial of this application based on the following 3 independently sufficient grounds as fully set forth in the staff's recommendation. 1, the applicant failed to pay taxes and other government obligations for which judgments have been entered. 2, an affiliate of the applicant illegally operated an unpermitted transfer station in violation of federal, state, and local laws. And 3, the applicant has unlawfully transported trade waste without a license or registration. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments regarding this application? Seeing none, is there a motion from the commissioners to adopt the staff's recommendation? Is there a second? How do the commission members vote?
Yes.
Let the record reflect that the vote is unanimous. That concludes the matters before the commission. I ask the members of the commission to sign each denial decision that has been voted today, which I'll be passing out in a moment. I thank the commission members for their participation, and I thank the members of the commission staff for their work on these matters. Thank you also to the members of the public who are here today. That concludes the